Hey everybody, thanks for checking out my YouTube channel, Homebody, where it's our goal to help you optimize your life through home improvement and fitness reviews. Today we're going to be talking about a garage door spring replacement, specifically Wayne Dalton Torquemaster system. So make sure you do some research prior to getting into this and make sure that you actually have the Wayne Dalton Torquemaster system. The big thing with the Wayne Dalton versus your kind of standard torsion system is on the Wayne Dalton, the springs it's an internal spring system. So if you look at the tube behind me, the springs are actually on the inside versus a standard garage door system where you see springs on the outside. I've got no experience with garage doors. I'm not a garage door repair guy. About 2 weeks ago, our garage door would only open about 8 inches and then it stopped. So I did some research and found that it was most likely going to be a broken spring. Started digging into it, and the Wayne Dalton website kind of had some tutorials, some information for me. Basically said that it was designed this way versus the torsion system, which everybody's kind of familiar with, to make it a little bit more user-friendly and easier for replacement. I called around to a couple different manufacturers just to get pricing. Nobody wanted to either sell me the springs or do the work on the Torquemaster system themselves. They told me that, for one, the springs, it was dangerous to sell the springs, and everybody suggested that instead of replacing the springs in the Torquemaster system, I switched out to a torsion system. I got a few different price quotes on that. It was about $600 to completely switch everything out to a torsion system versus the current Torquemaster system. And I was able to find a website that provides springs for this system. And the springs that I needed were about $230. That's going to vary depending on the weight of your garage door. That's one thing that you're going to have to do. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But all in all, the savings for the $230 it costs to get me the springs, it was really easy. I got them online. They showed up about 2 days later. So $230 versus $600 to replace it. I found this is an extremely easy system to work with. Disclaimer, I'm not affiliated with Wayne Dalton. I'm not affiliated with the spring company that I'm going to show you guys the link for. These are just, I found these to be helpful in my journey of figuring out how to replace these springs. So I'm just hoping that that'll work for you. My idea here is that I can kind of walk you guys through this step by step, show you what I did and how it worked for me, and hopefully you guys can save some money and you won't have to completely switch out the system from the Torquemaster system to a torsion system. All right, everybody, so the first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to have to release the tension from the springs in this tube here. So this is actually what is used to put the tension on the springs or release the tension. In order to release the tension, all you have to do is take your socket here, put it on, and you give it a little bit of a crank, and then this is a release button. So you take the pressure off, release it, and then you see here, what should happen is the ratchet should spin back up towards the top of the garage, but it's not. So there's no tension on this side of it. So that would indicate that this is likely the side where the spring is broken, but I don't have to do anything further on this side. There's still tension on the cable here. As you can see, it's still tight. So there's still tension on this. So now I'm going to go over to the other side and check that side. And I'm assuming that that's where the tension is going to be, and I'm going to have to release the tension on that side, and that the spring on this side of it is broken. So we'll go over to the other side and do that now. All right, now we're over on the right side. Same thing. We just have to get our socket on here and have to switch the direction. So now as I pull it down, I can feel there's tension on it. So all I have to do is pull down, push the release button in, and let it go up. And I'm going to have to keep doing this until it takes all the tension off the spring. So this is the one spot where you kind of have to be careful, because if you're not paying attention and you release all the tension here, your ratchet could snap up and you don't want to smack your knuckles against that. So now we're just going to keep doing this, and we're going to get all the tension removed from this spring, and then we'll go on to the next step. All right, so now we've got the tension released. One way that you can check that is if you reach up here, you should be able to just spin this. If this moves, then you're good. All your tension's released and the springs are no longer holding that tight. So the next thing you have to do is this cable right here. So the cable comes all the way down from here, and it connects on the bottom of your garage door. This is what actually takes up the weight of the garage door and helps to assist it open. So now that we have all that tension released, all you have to do using a screwdriver is come down here I would suggest you use a flashlight with this so you can see. But you can see there's a little knob on there that it's wrapped around. If you have a magnetic flashlight, all the better. And just get a screwdriver in there, and you can pop that right off the little knob that it sits on. So now I have it off. And then once we have this cable off, you just have to bring it up out of all the rollers, like so. And just let it hang down in front. We need it out in front of all these for when we take this whole assembly off. So we're going to stop here. We're going to move over to the other side. We're going to take the cable out there, and then we'll go on to our next step. All right, so our next step is we actually have to take this bracket off. So this bracket sits over our tightener, our tensioner. So it's just two screws. You've got this bolt right here that connects this to the frame, and then you've got this bolt here that connects this into the wall. So we're just going to start. We're going to take this one off first. And this one has a nut and a washer on it, so just be careful that you don't drop either of those and lose them. I'm just going to set that right in one of those holes, and I'll stay there. And then we're going to take this bracket off. So one thing to be careful with now is there's a gear, I guess it's kind of like a gear inside this bracket. So when you take this off, just make sure that you don't allow this to fall out, because the teeth on this need to go a certain direction. If not, it's going to, when you're trying to tighten your spring, you're actually going to loosen your spring. So what I've done is I just take this, slide it in there so that it can't fall through, and then I'll set that down on the ground, and I'm going to go do the other side. Okay, so the next thing we have to do is we have to disconnect this arm from the track up here. Pretty simple. It's just got, it's almost like a key ring type wire. So you just spin this till it comes out, till it goes out, just like you're taking a key off of a key ring, and then pop this pin out. Just be careful because it's going to fall. So just be mindful of your surroundings when you do that. All right, so the next step we have to do is we have to disconnect this bracket in the center. It should be the same size lag screws as you had on the ends. I'm going to take both these out, and once we do, the middle is going to be loose, so it's going to want to drop a little bit. Just be careful there. And then that bracket is going to stay right on there. So now we have everything loose. We're loose on both ends. We're loose in the center. The next step is we're going to have to take this entire assembly down, and I'm going to need somebody to assist me with that. So we'll be back with that in just a second. All right, so now we're ready to take the entire assembly down. As I mentioned earlier, I need a little bit of assistance with this just because this thing can be extremely awkward. It's not very heavy, but trying to lift it by yourself in the middle would be kind of dangerous. So I would recommend having somebody assist you with it. So all we have to do is lift it straight up, and we're going to come out of the little grooves that it goes in. Come my way with it, and then we're able to drop that side down. And then I'm able to move my side away. So this is obviously, make sure before you do this that we've got our cables out in front like we talked about, and you've got that arm released. And then we can just bring this down. Why don't you set it on top of the header for right now. And then you climb down. So now we're going to get down. We're going to get this thing set up on some sawhorses, and we're going to check the springs. And first of all, make sure that we are right and we have a broken spring. Okay, so now we have our entire assembly down. So the next thing we have to do is we have to take this off. This is just a winding system, I guess, for the spring. You may need to use a rubber mallet and just tap the back end here if it's on tight. Mine's loose enough that it comes off. So we're just going to take this off, and we're going to set that aside. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to pull this whole spring assembly out. So this is our spring assembly, and as you can see, we only had to get a couple inches out, and you can see right here that the spring's broken. So the rest of the spring is going to be in here. So what we're going to have to do is pull this out, and then we're probably just going to have to tip this thing down and shake it a little bit and get the rest of the spring out. So we'll do that next. All right, so now we take the spring out. Good idea to have somebody down on the other end, just because once you pull this spring out, the weight is going to be distributed unevenly. So if you don't have somebody on that other end, this could fly up. So just make sure you got someone down there. And we'll pull it out, broken spring and all. Okay, now there's this little plastic sleeve that you're gonna take out. The new springs I ordered came with a new plastic sleeve, so I'm gonna take the old one out. Sometimes they can get in a little bit. You might have to use a needle nose pliers or something to get on the edge of this and pull it out. Or you may have to take a spring and just slide it in there as far as you can to knock it out the other end. But once you get the end of that out, just pull that whole thing out. And now you have your spring and your sleeve out. Now we're gonna go over to the other side and do the same thing. All right, so now we have our new springs. Like I said, these showed up in about 2 days after I ordered them. I was pretty impressed with how quickly they came. And it was really easy to find the springs that I needed on the website. Like I said earlier, all you need to know is the weight of the garage door. So everything I found, what they suggest is that you use an analog scale, not a digital scale. I used a digital scale because I don't have an analog scale and it worked just fine. What I had to do was just pry up in the middle of the garage door and actually get it off the ground. I slid the scale under with a block on it, and I was able to get my weight pretty easily that way. You can also probably get a hold of the manufacturer and find out the weight, but like I said, it's really not that difficult to weigh it yourself. So we're going to open this up and we're going to see what we've got here for parts. And there's some instructions right here we're going to go through. Always read your instructions before you start to install things. Otherwise, you end up with some errors that you have to go back on. We don't want to do that. So we're going to get this completely unpackaged. We're going to take a look at the instructions, and then we'll get you going on the next step. Okay, so reading the instructions, the red painted end is the left side. Obviously, make sure you check your instructions. They could be different. But that matches with what I pulled out because the broken one I pulled out had red end painted. So we're just going to go ahead and slide this in. As you can see, this kind of is like a teardrop shape. So there's a ridge right here. Same thing with this. You can see there's a ridge right here. So we're just going to line that up like so. And we're going to slide this whole assembly in. The plastic sleeve is fit with that same kind of sleeve as well, or the teardrop shape. So we slide this all the way in. We want to make sure we're at least flush with this plastic. And then this is the groove here that's going to slide in, so we need that moderately exposed. Once we get to that point, we can actually put our cable back on. And the same thing with the cable. As you see, it's got the teardrop shape. So pretty easy to line that up. We just want to pull our spring out a little bit as we slide this over. And then that will line up. Sorry about that. This is a one kind of challenging part because it will want to slide on you, so just go kind of slow. Hold on to that, and then pull that tight. And then as you can see, you got a nice tight, it won't come out any further than this, and then this is the groove that's going to go onto the track above. So we've got that one on. Now we're going to go over to the other side and do the same thing, and we'll be back with our next step. Okay, so now we're going to put the assembly back up. Biggest thing to be careful of is make sure you're holding on to the winding reel here and the rod, just so that this doesn't slide off, because the springs are fairly heavy, so the weight from the springs, if you're tipping it one way or another, could force this whole thing off, so be careful of that. And then just make sure you don't get hung up on your cables on anything. So we're just going to put it back up into the grooves on the track there. Yep. And hopefully you have a little more room to work in your garage than I do, but I got to slowly climb over the boat trailer here. We're okay. Go outside of that arm. Yep. Make sure you stay outside of the arm. Up. And she's going to drop into the slot first, and then I'm going to drop my side in next. You may have to move the spring in or out a little bit. There's a slot on the spring there, the end of the spring. So now we've got it up there. So now our next step is we're going to have to reassemble everything. We're going to have to put our brackets back on and to reattach all the screws and then our arm in the center. So we're going to start doing that, and then we'll show you what we have to do next. All right, now we're going to put this bracket back on. You're just going to have to line up. There's grooves on the inside of this that are going to line up with this. So you just have to get everything lined up just right. And then it slides on like so. And we're just going to put this lag bolt back in. Okay. And then this guy that we saved, I'm going to put that back in, connecting our bracket. And then we're just going to tighten that back up. All right, so now we're all good here. Next thing we're going to have to do is feed the cables back through and reattach those. We'll show you how to do that next. Okay, now that we have our brackets on, we just have to reattach our cable. So make sure that your cable runs back behind each of the rollers here. So we're just going to slowly start to pull this through one at a time. Obviously be careful when you're pulling it that you don't snap yourself in the face. So we're going to drop this down through each and every one. And then we're going to reattach it at the bottom. Okay, now we're down at the bottom. We're just going to attach this cable over the little post down here. And again, you're probably going to need a screwdriver to assist with it. It's not the easiest to get on, but it's not that bad. It just takes a little bit of patience. Okay, and there we go. Now we have that attached. So now what we're going to do is we're going to actually end up reattaching our bracket in the center and the arm there. And then once we're done with that, we're going to start putting some tension on these springs. Okay, now we're going to attach this bracket again in the center. You're going to have to lift this up a little bit, and the bracket moves a little, so you're just going to have to line it up with the pre-existing holes. Okay. Now we have that reattached. Now we have to take our pin, and again, just spin this like you would taking a key off a ring. Pin comes out, and we're going to bring this back up. Slide our pin back through, and then put this little keeper back on. And now we're all set. So what we're going to do is we're going to start putting some tension on the springs. I'll kind of show you guys where that is in the instruction manual, and we'll go from there. Okay, so now what we're going to do is start putting tension on. So the instruction manual that comes with it is going to tell you, depending on how big your door size, how much tension you're going to have to put on it, and that goes by turns. So for mine, it says it's 16 turns total. The only complicated thing here is there's really no way to tell how many turns you've made. So what you want to do is just make a little mark on the plate, and then a little mark here on the plastic wheel. That way I can keep track of how many turns I make. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to do the full 16 turns just because you want to make sure that, heaven forbid, maybe you got the wrong spring and it's going to be too much tension. I would suggest going about halfway and then checking the garage door and seeing how well it opens. So lining up my mark here, all I'm going to do is start putting some tension on this, and you can hear it clicks as it goes. And I can just watch the little mark I made. There's 1. 2. 3. 4. 5. 6. Now you can feel the tension increasing as you're going, so you're doing it right. There's 7. And as you can see, there's really it latches every, I don't know what it is, maybe 1/8 of a turn or so. So it can't retract. So there's 8 turns total. One thing I wanted to include, make sure that back when we were releasing the tension, When you do release the tension on these things, once you get to that click and you release it, as you come up here, you have to let go of this tab again for it to engage in the teeth. So just make sure that when you are releasing the tension on it, that's what you're doing. I'm going to take it back to where we were at our 8th turn. And then we're going to head over to the other side, and we're going to put 8 turns on that side, and we're going to see how everything looks. All right, so I did 8 turns. After 8 turns, I couldn't even lift the door, so obviously I need more than that. I did another 5, so 8 and 5 puts us at 13. I'm not very good with math, but so at 13 turns, so now I'm at the point where I can lift the garage door, but it doesn't lift easily. So I still need more. Ideally, what I want is to be able to lift it and have the door just kind of hover about halfway open, so it's not falling down and it's not shooting up either. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to the 16 that it recommended, and then we're going to give it another try. So 3 more turns, and we'll see what happens. Okay, so now we have 16 full turns, and as you can see, the garage door opens pretty easily with very little assistance from me. This is catching, so I just have to release this. But now I can bring the garage door up to about halfway, and as you can see, it stays there. So we don't want it to continue to travel up. We also don't want it to fall back down. So I think the 16 adjustment turns that I had to go through were the right amount. So we're going to put the garage door back down, make sure everything's connected there, and we're going to give it a try and make sure it opens. Okay, now we're going to, hold on, Audrey. Now we're going to give it a try. We're going to make sure everything opens and closes properly. I think we have everything out of the way. Just make sure there's nothing that's going to trip our sensors. And we'll give it a shot and see if we know how to fix a garage door. Thank you! Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you guys found this helpful. Like I said earlier, I have no experience with garage doors up until today. In fact, I was kind of intimidated by the whole idea of replacing the springs myself. But I have to say that, in my opinion, this Wayne Dalton system is actually pretty user-friendly. I spent, like I said, about $240 for the springs alone, shipping on top of it. So even at that, if I'm looking at $300 versus $600 to completely change out this system, they say that garage door springs should last you between 8 and 10 years, depending on how many cycles the opener goes through. We've been at this house for 9 years, so I think we got what we're supposed to get out of the springs. If I can get another 8 to 10 years out of these springs for the price that I paid for them, fine. That's fantastic in my opinion. And I can replace them again if I have to. I can replace them twice, I guess, for the same price that I would have had to pay to convert it to a torsion system. So I had, like I said earlier, no affiliation with Wayne Dalton garage doors. I'm not trying to sell their product. But in my opinion, especially, I've heard a lot of horror stories about people trying to do a torsion system on their own. This is easy. This is something you can do on your own. The biggest thing you have to be careful of is releasing the tension. So just make sure that you're getting all the information. Wayne Dalton's website has information on how you want to do it to release that tension. So just make sure that you're careful doing that. And hopefully this video is helpful for you guys and you can save some money too. I just want to say thanks to my 2 daughters for their assistance in making this video. And we all hope that you guys watch this video and find it helpful and you can save some money. To help you optimize your life through home improvement and fitness repair reviews. So I started calling around to a few places and everybody told me that. Sorry. All right, so actually I got lucky here and the whole spring came out. Probably want to make sure that you're paying attention to the weight on both ends. Let's redo that. Sometimes they'll get wedged in really far, and if they do, then you might have to use the other spring. Stop, redo. Because obviously I had to pay a little bit for shipping, but I'm talking about a 250 to, nope, that's wrong math. Okay, let's redo it. But other than that, there's really no. What the